the antidote to addiction is connection. So rather than go, I will only love you when you're clean, I will only be around you when you're not using drugs, that's conditional love. Whereas unconditional love is like, look, I know you're struggling, and I want to be there for you, and like giving them a cuddle and saying, come round and spend some time together. And that took me a long time to get to that point. I'm very wise now, but it was years of like really angry at my dad and resenting him and just genuinely thinking, is he going to shoot up tonight and die, you know?
Welcome to How to Fail, the podcast that believes that most failures can teach us something meaningful. Many of you will feel you already know Joe Wicks, and perhaps you do. Perhaps you were one of the 100 million viewers of his lockdown workouts, YouTube videos that not only kept a nation healthy and occupied, but which raised over £600,000 for the NHS and children in need, earning Wicks an MBE. Or maybe you've cooked one of the meals from his best-selling cookbooks. His first, Lean in 15, 15-minute meals, was published in 2015 and became the second biggest-selling cookbook of all time, just behind Jamie Oliver. Perhaps you are simply one of his 12 million followers on social media, where he shares motivational quotes, inspirational stories, easy recipes, and cute family pictures of his model wife, Rosie, and 3 young children. Perhaps you have taken, like Wicks, to calling broccoli miniature trees. And even if you fit into none of these categories, Wicks has reached such a level of national recognition that the chances are you know who I'm talking about. And yet, despite this success, teachers at his secondary school didn't think he'd amount to much. Growing up on a Surrey council estate, Wicks had a troubled, albeit loving, childhood. His father suffered from heroin addiction and his mother from mental health issues. Wicks's escape from the chaos was physical exercise, a message he became passionate about spreading. His latest book, Feel Good in 15, is a guide to using just 15 minutes a day to become healthier and more fulfilled. The best piece of advice my dad gave me was, if you're going to miss the bus, miss it running, Wicks says. So from that point on, I just always gave my all to everything that I ever did. Even if I know I'm not going to reach that goal and I'm going to fail, I'll give it 100%. Joe Wicks, welcome to How to Fail.
I was mesmerised. I really loved that introduction. I was like a story. You're a great storyteller, and you've done your research because everything was true and factual. And yeah, that was lovely. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for saying that. You have inspired so many of us. And I actually started doing your at-home workouts before lockdown. I like to think I was ahead of the curve.
Oh yeah, before it was even cool, you were doing them on YouTube.
And you were brilliant. I was in a tiny rented flat, and I only had this like strip of space, and I couldn't afford to join a gym. And so I had Joe Wicks, and I want to thank you for that, as I'm sure many millions of listeners do. But I wanted to end on that quote, that idea of giving it your all, even if you're going to fail, because at least then you fail nobly. How do you feel about failure generally?
Well, I'm so glad you've done my workouts. That's really made me smile because, yeah, I love that, to think of everyone, you know, just giving it a go and feeling good and positive and stuff. So I'm really glad you found them. In terms of, you know, that quote that my dad said to me, you know, it was like a lightning bolt. He said, Joe, if you're going to miss the bus, miss it running. And I realised that what that means is, you know, sometimes you just know in your heart you might not get to that bus, you might not reach that goal. But if you didn't run for it, you'll never know. You might have got on that bus and actually reached that goal. So I've applied that mentality really to kind of my whole life, really, since I was a sort of teenager with, you know, if you think about the boot camp in the early days, you know, you might have seen these videos of me handing out flyers at the station, you know, and no one would turn up. And I had this mentality that if I don't come back, if I don't keep showing up, then I'm not going to grow my business. I'm not going to have a boot camp. So I think that sometimes it's that mindset shift that, you know, I've just got to keep turning up and it will grow, it will build. And that's really a kind of testament to my career, I think. I've just been relentless.
Did you know that you were destined to be successful? Or do you think it was purely just keeping at it and being relentless, as you say? Did you have a bigger picture?
You know, when you look at old archive footage of like musicians, I'm thinking of like clips of Taylor Swift when she's like a little girl singing in the living room. You're like, I'm going to be a star. I want to be a celebrity. I want to be famous. And some people have that from a young age. I was never someone that like had visions or even self-belief that I could become anything more than a kid from a home of addiction. I just thought this will be my life. I'll probably repeat the cycle. This is what I'm going to live in, this chaos and this kind of environment for my whole life. So I definitely didn't have ambition. And it's not been, even as I look at my success, it's been such a gradual thing where I just was like sharing videos for fun. You know, I loved it. I loved sharing videos. I loved the interaction between sharing a video on Instagram and someone cooking it, or me doing a workout and someone saying, "Oh, I just did this workout on Australia," you know. So it was a love for the movement and fitness and food that kind of built this career, but it was never intentional. And so I never had a foresight that, you know, I was going to have TV shows and books and all that sort of stuff.
But I think that's why people love you, because they can tell that it's so genuinely intended. And we're going to come on to your childhood in a minute because it relates to one of your failures. But you, as I mentioned in the introduction, you came from relatively humble beginnings. Is there a sense that you don't want to allow yourself to get too big for your boots?
I think it's just who you are, isn't it? Like, yeah, I come from a council estate where, like, you know, we didn't own houses, we didn't have cars, like we didn't even own, and everything was borrowed and hired, and, you know, probably even like just council flat. A lot of us were on benefits, so it wasn't like we even owned property. So when my life started to change, it was amazing because it took away the stress of worrying about money. Like, all I remember as a kid is my mum and dad fighting over money and, you know, worrying about school uniform and school bags and shoes, you know, like that sort of thing. So definitely changed my life. But I think it's just in you, isn't it? What kind of person you are. Like, I'm not someone who is greedy, or I'm actually quite generous, like by nature. I think that comes from my childhood, and wanting to give back and help, I think, comes from the environment I grew up in. So yeah, I think it's been a positive experience for me. Like, I think I've used my energy and my experience as a child in a really positive way.
Have you been able to help your family as well?
Yeah, I know it's pretty cliche, but the first thing you want to do, right, when you make money, is you want to buy your mum's house. It's like, imagine being able to buy your mum a house. Like, what the ultimate gift of not having to stress about paying the bills and stuff. So when I got my first book deal, the advance wasn't that big, but because it sold so many copies, I got a huge royalty check. And I didn't like buy myself a flat in London or buy myself a car. I bought my mum a council flat, and she loves it. And every day she still says, "I'm so grateful for that. You know, you give me such peace and such a security that she's never had." As a single mum raising 3 kids, you know, it was all about just scrapping and trying to get by, sort of thing. So that was the kind of the first thing I ever did, really, for her.
That's beautiful. I think part of the reason that your work resonates with so many people is because there's a straightforwardness to it. You do seem really positive and upbeat, and you're very encouraging. And we live in an era where there's so much chatter around diet and exercise, and whether you should be fasting or concentrating on your microbiome or looking at glucose spikes. And actually, what you do is quite clear. What is your advice for anyone who feels overwhelmed by all of the noise out there around diet and fitness?
Well, even I, as someone who's in the industry, like, and sort of understands a little bit about the body, I still get confused by what I see. You know, certain people are so extreme in their views that one minute it's like you need to be keto, and then it's, you know, we should be plant-based, we shouldn't eat red meat, and then someone's saying, no, red meat is amazing for us, we need the iron, we need, you know, and, you know, porridge is an amazing breakfast. No, but it's got these chemicals in, you shouldn't eat oats. And I'm like,
Yes.
I get confused. Like, I love porridge with raspberries and strawberries and stuff, and they're like, but there's loads of chemicals in strawberries, the way it's produced, and, you know, so you sort of feel like, what can I eat? What is good for me? And I'm like about balance. I really think it's about trying to encourage people to stop relying on ultra processed foods and cooking at home. And it's tough, right? Because we live in a world where we're so stressed, we're so busy that we neglect ourselves, and that really comes with food and it comes through exercise. But yeah, it's confusing. I think it's about getting back to basics, you know, getting in the kitchen, cooking, meal prepping, you know, batch cooking a few things, and that can set you up for success, as opposed to always leaving the house empty-handed. The only thing you've really got is processed or ultra-processed foods. But again, it's not about removing it. You're never going to live in a world where you can live a completely pure, 100% whole food diet. It's not going to happen. But you can do a few little things to reduce it, you know, carry your lunch to work, or make a nice healthy meal that you can come home to and it's just there. You can put your microwave dinner in the microwave because you've made it. You know, it's not like from a machine or processed in a massive factory. And it's little things like that. I'm realistic too. I've got 3 kids. Like,
Yeah.
I'd love to say I make my own fresh pesto and I make harissa paste and basil. You know, like, I don't. I buy ready-made pestos. I buy ready-made Thai green curry paste, and I make a really delicious, healthy curry, and my kids eat it. Do you know what I mean? And that's more realistic than trying to say you got to do it this way and cut these things out, because I still love I love ultra processed foods. I love ice cream and chocolate and crisps. I love all of it, but it can't be all day, every day. You have to allow yourself those treats, but you'd be more balanced with it, I think.
So, last question before we get on to your failures, which you have said to me quite rightly, you frame them as learnings rather than failures, which is absolutely what this podcast is all about. But I noticed that you posted on Instagram this week, and you said, I tried so hard to wake up and exercise this morning. I failed. I'm just not finding the mornings easy at the moment. And then you go on to say, that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself, Joe. You were up late and didn't sleep well. Get to bed earlier tonight. I thought that was such a radical act in so many ways, and so vulnerable in a way that I think other people will feel seen by. How difficult was that for you to open up about on that platform?
I mean, I've always thought that, the more honest you can be with people, the more real and human you are, the more you connect with people. And I don't wake up thinking, I'm going to send this revolutionary post that's going to like make everyone really think differently. But I talked to myself and I thought, I'm going to share this because like I got back from America and like it's been cold and dark. And I think it's physically harder to wake up in the winter because, you're naturally wanting to wake up with the sunrise. So if you're trying to get up at 5, 6, 7 a.m., it's really difficult. So when I shared that, I didn't manage to do it because my little baby Lenny's been waking me up and I'm waking up. I'm not the body coach. If I've had 5, 6 hours sleep, I'm not exercising and I'm probably not going to eat healthy food that day either because your willpower goes out the window. And I think, the more you share those things, people go, oh, I'm so glad you shared that. I really connect with that. And I'm feeling exactly the same. And it did. That post got probably 10,000 people out of bed because they're obviously scrolling, right? They're like, if Joe's saying that, I'm going to get up. Or if Joe's, feeling better after work, I'm going to try. And so I do see the power that social media can have in a positive way. But I'm not like overthinking. I'm not thinking this is a hero post. I'm like, this is just a nice thing to say. Same when I have a binge. Like if I'm on a book tour and every time I go on a book tour, you turn up and there's like brownies and cakes and there's nice gifts in the hotel and things. And I eat that all week. I look terrible. I'm bloated and I share it and it ends up in the Daily Mail and I don't care because it is what it is. But I do think people really respond to that human element of like, Joe has stressful days where he turns to food and Joe doesn't sleep well because his baby's waking up and he doesn't exercise for a few days. Rather than it be all perfect, I'm not always happy. I'm not always eating well and I'm not always really lean. It's getting harder and harder, like to stay in that state of like pure physical fitness every day when you've got kids. It's about being realistic, I think. I see a lot of positive on social media, although there's a negative. I see when I share something in the morning, even this morning, I said, look, I didn't manage to do a 30-minute workout. I did a 15-minute workout and it's enough. Like I feel better. And so that is a small little trigger for someone else that goes, oh, you know what? I cannot be bothered to this. I'm freezing. I don't want to get out of bed, but I'm just going to quickly put on my shoes and do a little HIIT workout with Joe or go for that walk. And it's like I see the impact and I read the DMs and I respond. And I quite like that. I like that feeling of like getting people moving.
You read the DMs and you respond. That must be quite a task.
Yeah, that's my job. My job, I have a business, the app's a business. There's 30 people. Nicky's my brother. He's the CEO, but I'm not that involved in that part of it. My job is to just get up, film good workouts, film great recipes and inspire and motivate and engage with my audience because that's all I do every day. Like I'm lucky that I've got Nicky because I can do that and I can build something great because I'm just doing the bit I love, which is basically, if you send me a voice note or a DM, like I'm going to get back to you. Not every time, it's obviously impossible, but I work really hard on getting back to people that need it and sending a little voice note. And that's really what I spend most of my time doing every day.
Do you ever get emotionally drained? And if so, where do you put that?
I do get emotionally drained sometimes, especially when it's around the mental health stuff, because the more I talk about mental health, the more DMs will come in around that. And I obviously did a documentary on BBC One around my parents' mental health struggles. And it was like during that point, I was like overwhelmed by it and I didn't know how to kind of process it and almost offload the feelings. But now I think I've got a better balance. I'm not on the phone as much. I'm having sort of boundaries of it. But yeah, like you get messages from people that are kind of going through really difficult times and they think I'm their savior and I've got to give them the right advice. And if you do open a message and they see you've opened it, I could never ignore it.
Yeah.
I would never. So it's like, I just sort of wait till I'm in the right mindset and I'll flag it and I'll come back when I'm ready and I'll send a nice message. And, it might just be like pointing them in the right direction to something else or asking them a question, getting them thinking a bit differently.
Let's get on to your first learning around failure, which is learning to become more compassionate about your dad's addiction. You say that you were angry as a teenager. What form did that anger take?
So the anger comes from the constant kind of resentment and disappointment of relapse. Like when you're living with someone with addiction and they're clean and you think everything's right in your life suddenly feels stable, any moment it can just completely change. And suddenly my mum's kicked him out. He's living with his mum or he's in a rehab or he's on the streets, whatever, And so it was really, I was, I suppose, always anxious. And then as a kid, I kind of absorbed it as a little kid. But by the time I got to a teenager, I was just done. I was like, I'm fed up with this. Why aren't we enough? Why can't you love us? And just pushed him away, I suppose. And I've realised, and I heard this lovely term once that changed my kind of perception, that the antidote to addiction is connection. So rather than go, I will only love you when you're clean, I will only be around you when you're not using drugs. That's conditional love. Whereas unconditional love is like, look, I know you're struggling, and I want to be there for you, and like giving them a cuddle and saying, come round and spend some time together. And that took me a long time to get to that point. I'm very wise now, but it was years of like really angry at my dad and resenting him, and just genuinely thinking, is he going to shoot up tonight and die, and like and I realised I'm a carer, even now I still worry about my dad all the time, think about him every day, like, because he's never out of the woods. You always, he's up and down with his, depression and stuff, so you sort of worry about these things.
Is he sober now?
Yeah, he's clean, he's sober, and we got a great relationship, and I really am so grateful, like when I talk about gratitude, that he survived addiction, and that he, because heroin's a tough drug to beat, not many people can come out of it, and he's still got his health as well, which is great. So he's still pretty young. We've still got a lot of years together, hopefully. And we have a good relationship now. But the compassion part comes from age and like wisdom, and sort of reading about, trauma and childhood addiction, and, like great people like Gabor Mate, and like people I listen to, like, wow, that makes sense. And I don't want to repeat the cycle with my children and stuff. So yeah, compassion grows, I think. I think as we age, as we grow, you become more compassionate towards everybody and the world, I think. And that's positive. If you've got a growth mindset, I think.
Did you witness him taking drugs?
Never witnessing like physically like shooting up. It was always done behind closed doors, maybe in a bathroom where he'd go out and come back. But definitely the after effects, because when you're doing that sort of drug, it's not like you're running around chatting, you're really fun dad, and let's play games. Like he'd be asleep like a zombie sort of thing. So that was always tough, because I had so much energy as a kid, and so when your dad's there on the sofa like just like monged out, that's really hard, isn't it? Because he's there but he's not really there. And then my mum was the opposite, so erratic, so chaotic, OCD, anxious, eating disorders, and like couldn't sit still, and was cleaning the house and smoking cigarettes and drinking. She lived off cigarettes and Coca-Cola, my mum, so she would drink like 10 cans of Coca-Cola a day, and really I was in such an unhealthy environment. And I do think, how have I come out of that, you know what I mean? And I love food and exercise, and I'm not an addict in that sense, and I've always steered away from those kind of addictions. But it all stems back to my mum and dad's childhood trauma resulted in them dealing with those feelings with drugs and addictions and stuff. So I kind of used exercise to, like, I always talk about soothing myself with exercise, because I would smash myself, like run to school at like 10 years old and play sport all day long and exhaust myself, because I just felt like it released it all from my body.
How did your brothers respond to it? You mentioned Nikki, and you've got a younger brother, George.
Yeah, older brother Nicky is 18 months older than me, and my little brother's 10 years younger. So we're all from the same mum and dad, and they're not together now. But yeah, we've had different experiences, because Nicky was 18 months older, so he remembers more, he saw more and heard more. And he was much more, I think he bottled up those emotions a lot more than me. Whereas I was like much more hyperactive, probably ADHD, and angry and shouty, and Nicky was very much wouldn't talk about his feelings. My little brother George, I think he got kind of a bit of both. He had my mum during the week and my dad during the weekends. And we've all kind of had a bit of a different experience, really.
Because I read somewhere that you didn't tell anyone at school what was going on. Is that right?
Yeah, because you can't really, can you? When you're a kid, I mean, this is obviously like 1985 I was born. So the stigma around mental health was one thing. And obviously, imagine being like a 7-year-old kid and going into school and saying, oh, the police knocked down our door last night. I just thought they were going to take me away from my mum and dad. If you keep asking me these questions, I'm going to probably crack, because it's making me feel quite emotional. But
I'm so sorry.
It's all right, no, I can talk about it, but it does make me feel quite emotional, like thinking myself in that situation, especially with kids now. Like I can't imagine living in a house like that with my kids now. Like it would be so difficult for them. But yeah, you just couldn't talk about it. And so I was a naughty kid that just like stick him in detention, put him in isolation. Like he's just a clown. He's not. But really, I was just a kid that wanted someone to say, "What's going on, Joe? Like, talk to me." Do you know what I mean? But you seek attention in other ways, I think. So yeah, I was a nice boy, but I was disruptive and a clown and attention seeking, and that affected my probably grades and subjects in things like maths and English. But you put me in sport or PE, or put me in technology, on building like something with my hands, or art. I loved it. And even cooking, I remember thinking I loved, they used to call it home economics, didn't they? Like cooking, making like cookies and things. So I was very much more practical, and that was that energy that I just needed to be like hands on, as opposed to I couldn't focus and concentrate on those things because of probably what was going on in my head, just living in this state of like, oh, what's going on, and going home to my mum's, because I couldn't go in the house and be a normal kid and like running my shoes on and throw toys around. It was like I'd be like hoovering my bedroom and stuff and like making my bed a couple of times a day, and it would have to be super neat. Like, so weird talking about it now because it felt normal at the time. But I'd have to hoover the carpet like really young and stuff, like over and over again, because that was my mum's way of controlling. You know, the only thing she controlled was the food she ate or didn't eat, and you know, the house and cleaning. Put it this way: if my mum turned to drugs, my life would have been very different. Like, thank God she had something different, because if my mum and dad were both addicts using, one of them would have ended up dead, and probably would have been put in care 100%, because she was always clean, always the one like keeping the house tidy, looking after us, you know, and that was there. She's so pivotal, I think, in that. So I'm really glad she didn't go down that path, you know, for us.
What are your parents' names?
So it's Regella and Gary.
So what was the turning point for you with Gary? You described it there as a gradual process of understanding that the antidote to addiction was connection. But can you remember one day or one moment where you suddenly thought, oh, this has to change?
There's a moment where I think I can think back to when I was 18. I went travelling to Australia, and my dad flew out, and he was clean for the first time in a long time, and he flew out to see me. We spent 3 weeks together, and it was just that first time we connected, and just seeing his eyes, like not using, and just actually like looking at me and talking, and like sort of seeing me be happy and seeing him be happy. Hang on.
Oh, Joe.
Sorry, hang on. That was a really lovely, it's all right, it was a really lovely moment. Like, it's a really lovely time. I remember just thinking like, this is what it should be like when you have a dad, sort of thing. So we had a wicked time in Australia, and that kind of built like the bridges, I think. And then I just sort of like loved him a lot, because he was
trying.
He was just funny. Yeah, just like funny to be around him and to see him not struggling, like not suffering. He was like just basically like it was like we were hang on a sec. It was like we were just
It's okay.
I'll get over this in a sec. Once I let it out, I'll bounce back.
You don't have to
basically
bounce back.
I just remember like it's like we were like backpacking together. It was hilarious, and we were like going to we like lived in a hostel, and it's just fun. Like, just so that was a big moment for me to sort of like accept him, I suppose. For
Joe, you're an amazing.
I can't get this out.
You don't have to.
I haven't talked like this for a while, but yeah, it was just like that was an important moment, because then I accepted like the past. We're having fun. We're here now. This is like so much fun. And then when I came back, I just think he just got back into the fellowship and was going to meetings, and he stayed clean for a few years. But there's definitely relapses along the way. But again, rather than be like, oh, I can't stand this, I hate you, like, I'll just be like, right, come on, I love you, bro. Like, not bro. I do call him brother. We call each other brother. Say, I love you, bro. Like, what's going on? Let's get together and, you know, get back to human connection again. So, well, I've let it out now. Feels good to cry. It does feel good to cry. I feel a bit lighter now.
It's an expression of your love.
But yeah, you kept digging and digging. I thought eventually something's going to break me. But that was such a positive memory. So yeah, I'd say that was the moment where like we really formed a friendship. And now today, you know, we have something in common. We love motorbikes. So every year we go on a little motorbike trip together. And, you know, just like me and my little brother George and my dad. And we're creating memories that are so special that I don't look back angry and resentful, because what's the point? Like, I think, you know, that, and even like, I talk a lot about my mum being like kind of the positive energy in my life, but I took so much from my dad's experience. You know, I didn't experiment with drugs. I was so frightened of the consequences that I've learned a lot, just as much from my dad probably as I am from my mum, you know.
They must be so proud of you. Are you aware that they are proud of you?
Well, I am, because my mum's very needy and she's very loving, and she has to tell me every day how much she loves me. So she'll either WhatsApp me or send me a message saying that she's so proud. And, you know, even today with the book coming out, she's just like, you know, I'm so proud of you. And it's nice to hear that, because, like I said, we weren't expected to become anything. You know, we were just a family of, you know, wrong-uns. I always say the word wrong-uns because I felt like we were the wrong-uns. You know, even amongst the council estate, we were the ones that you just wouldn't want to be around, you know, because it was just madness and slamming and doors and shouting and swearing. And, you know, I was probably a bit naughty and stuff. And so you wouldn't look at me and think, that boy's going to go on to do something great and like be amazing and help loads of people. It just wasn't even in like my atmosphere to dream of anything like that. So yeah, they are proud. My mum and dad are proud, and I think we're all quite a sensitive, emotional bunch. We cry a lot, you know. My dad not so much, but my mum and my mum will cry a lot, and I think that's made me quite sensitive as well, I think.
Yeah. The one thing that always comes out whenever I've read or watched an interview with you is that your childhood was chaotic in many ways, but it was filled with love, and you haven't ever doubted that you are loved.
Yeah. So the absence of love, from all the research and all the kind of podcasts I listen to, like the biggest factor in a child's development is love, right? So if there's absence of love and neglect and you're not, told that you're valuable, appreciated and loved, that's where childhood trauma comes from. And that's what happened to my mum and dad. Like my mum's dad left her when she was a baby. She ended up in a care home. Her mum was very tough on her and she was always lacking love. And my dad in the same way, his father ran away, moved to America, had loads of kids with another woman. And, he never told my dad he loved him until he was dying on his deathbed once,
Wow.
And I imagine how hard that is because what's more important in life? It's not like, oh, look at the job I've got, mum, or look how much money I've made. It's like, no, it's like, did your mum and dad love you? We're always seeking that validation, probably more from them than anyone ever, right? And so I think, yeah, I did always feel loved, even though the family was like unstable and it was like a bit like, what's happening next? I still knew my mum and dad loved me. And if they had a massive row and she said, he's going, I'm not having him here, it's only because she didn't want us to be around it. She didn't want us to be around it. But she'd always let him back because she always wanted us to have a dad because she didn't have a dad. So for 20 years, back and forth, I'll take him back, I'll give him another go, but it's really hard when you're living with an addict. I think having the love is what kept me stable and it made me so grounded because I do think without that, you can really feel quite lost in the world if you feel like your mum and dad didn't love you or want you around.
And I think that it enables you then to share that love with others who you've never met, but who feel loved by you through a computer screen or through a phone screen or through one of your books. So that's a really generous act. And actually talking about parental love brings us onto your second learning, which is learning to be more patient with your kids. So were you ever impatient with your kids?
So the reason I've put that down as a lesson learned is because I'm constantly having to learn patience and it's tested so much. I've got 3 children, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old who spend most of their day arguing and fighting. And so you're constantly, having to challenge yourself and that default reaction that I have got. So when I was a kid, it was very shouty. It was impatience, intolerance. There wasn't gentle parenting back then. So it was like, that's my kind of reaction. So I do get stressed out and I do feel myself boiling up and I'm having to learn to like treat people differently and understand that, my child needs to be like, I need to be understanding and I need to be compassionate and also, not lose my shit sometimes because kids, they don't have the rational brain yet. They're not quite developed. So that is something I battle with because when I do shout or if I walk out the room and slam the door, I just feel so bad for like so many hours and it sits with me all day. So like I'm trying to, like I've read a few parenting books and I listen to podcasts around, just seeing the child slightly differently and rather than them seeing them having a tantrum and that, you should just scream and shout at them to shut them up. Actually, the best bit of advice I ever had was when your child's having a little tantrum or a little meltdown, ask them for a cuddle because what they really wanted, they're not communicating how they feel. And so now my little 3-year-old boy, he's very sensitive. He's super light. He's up and down, and he's really calm. And then he gets really emotional. He has big feelings, as we say. He now asks me for a cuddle when he starts to scream and cry. He's like, "Dad, I need a cuddle." And even then, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to cuddle you, but I'm going to do it. And I cuddle him, and I feel a bit calmer, and he feels calmer. And you can kind of work through it much quicker than shouting and screaming and trying to sort of mirror their behaviour. But that is a skill, and it's a challenge, and it's a muscle that you have to work every day. Because it's so easy just to kind of lose it and, shout back at them. And then what have you taught them? You haven't taught them anything, have you really, in that moment?
Do you think you see yourself as a child of their age when you're parenting your own children, if that makes sense? So you're not only parenting them, but you're healing your own relationship with your own parents when you were that age?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a bit of that, because you want to just be different. You want to try to break the cycle. And I think I did that with, my kind of life and the way I went down a different route in terms of exercise as opposed to like, life of drugs and crime and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you know, when you just see your children, you understand, like, actually, I was shouted as I was a kid. And although I don't hold it against my mum at all. And I'm not like emotionally scarred from the time she screamed and shouted at me. But, you know, I want to be a kind, gentle parent. I want to teach my children to like be able to regulate their emotions as opposed to stop crying, don't do that, shut up, you know, and swearing at them, because that's not really teaching them to deal with their emotions. It's teaching them to just like conform to what you're saying. But as an adult, look, I cry as an adult because maybe I cried as a kid, sort of thing. And I think, I think it's a good thing to teach your children that it's okay to be really happy and overexcited and be wild and be feral. Like my kids are feral, but it's okay to also be angry and stressed because something hasn't worked out. All right, I can see you're wound up, but can I help you, sort of thing? And then they can sort of problem solve a little bit. It's just little things like that. But I still get it wrong. I still have times when I shout, and even Rosie, like, she's so patient, but everyone has a breaking point. We all crack now and again, don't we?
Yeah. I'm so glad you've spoken about this. No one else has ever chosen this as a failure, and yet it's so highly relatable. Or like almost every parent will relate to this. So how much has Rosie helped you?
She's ridiculously like calm and so naturally like patient. So for her default setting is to be calm. Mine's to be shouting, and basically mine's to be a 2-year-old, like, and they call it the baboon brain, like just like irrational and just like mirror and just not deal with it and just probably either scream and shout or just run away and walk out the room and not come back for a few hours. Whereas Rosie's really calm. So I always observe and think, how is she staying so calm? Like in the car, when we're on the plane, when the kids are fighting. And so I've really learned from her just to kind of, again, just respond slightly differently. But yeah, you know, like I said, the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old, they love each other, but they are fighting every minute of the day. And we're with them every day because we homeschool. So we are with them 24/7, and it's intense. So you're like a teacher, a parent, a referee. You're trying just to constantly make them negotiate a way around their arguments and like just conflict resolution. And that's the hardest part of parenting. It's not even the sleep, it's the fighting, because they're constantly at it. And you're like, what are you arguing about? Oh, I've got 3 grapes, he's got 4 grapes. Like, and then you realize I can avoid this. Just give them 4 grapes each. Do you know what I mean? Make sure that they've got, what colour straw do you want, Lenny? Oh, I want the blue one. What colour straw do you want, Marley? Oh, I want the blue one. Oh, look, guys, I've got 2 blue straws. Do you know what I mean? You start to just think like that. Everything's got to be equal.
You say that you homeschool your children there. Are you ever tempted to send them back?
Well, we're only a few months into it. It's a good question, because obviously a lot of people ask me, oh, what's it like? You know, and I'm so blessed that I can do it because I can be at home with Rosie. I think if she was on her own, or I was on my own, it would never happen. But, you know, we are a team and we split things, and I'll do a little bit of them and then she'll do a bit. And, you know, I'm around them a lot. So I think it is tough, and we're not sure it's an forever thing, but we're doing it for a year, see how it goes. And, you know, she went to school last year, but I think we'll give it a go this year and we'll reassess it in the year. At the moment, we're getting on with it.
Yeah.
But it's the little boy, he's going to be hard work because he's like me, he doesn't want to sit still.
Okay.
Indy will sit and do phonics, she'll do a little maths work, but with Indy it's been an easier journey. But I think with Marley, maybe we'll reconsider, who knows.
One of the things that I was very intrigued by, again, when it came to reading interviews in the run-up to this episode, was how relentlessly obsessed journalists have been with trying to find your dark side. It's like so many interviews start off with Joe Wicks can't possibly be as positive as he seems.
I've noticed that too. Did you read the one in the Times?
Yes.
On the cover of the Times?
Yeah.
I loved the interview with Polly.
Yeah.
But like I was like, it's kind of like this angle of like, he can't be that nice. He must be a bit more sinister. There's something I've got to uncover. And I used to get that all the time with like Men's Health, with, you know, You Magazine, even like the Times, you know, the Sun, all these papers. But I don't know, I'm just like, that's okay, I don't mind, but they always end up writing a nice article like about me in the end. But they do have that kind of perspective of, there's got to be something about him that isn't quite right, or he's not quite being as genuine online as he is. But, you know, I am kind of my true self. I'm my most truest self, I think, on Instagram stories, because it's literally me. I'm on my phone, I'm with the kids, I'm with Rosie. I'm not like pretending to be anyone, it's just me. And that's my truest self, I think, even more so than a podcast or a TV show, because I'm always like, I'm self-conscious, I don't want to be on TV. Like, so my stories is where I'm my realist, I think.
You're self-conscious?
Yeah, I mean, I was on This Morning cooking today, and I'm not like Jamie Oliver, like, I want to be on TV. Like, I don't really, I find it quite difficult. Like,
do you?
Yeah, because it's not my comfort zone, is it? I only do it a few times a year, like once a year. But I mean, if I really love cooking, I'd have a TV show, wouldn't I? If I could have a cooking TV show, but I only do TV when it's like talking about the mission, or if I'm doing more of the exercise. I think if I'm doing exercise, I'd do a like live TV workout today, right now, without even thinking about it. But the cooking and the talking and just, yeah, I don't know. I'm not naturally like, I'm not desperate for that, you know, in my life.
Have you ever felt self-conscious about your own body?
Of course, yeah. I wrote my dissertation at university. It's so apt, and so it's even now it's so relevant to me as an individual. But I studied the impacts of sort of male body image on like social physique anxiety. So measuring, you know, about men that kind of think they're too skinny or they want more muscle, and it's like, you know, it's a real thing. And so I always felt I was very skinny, you know, always wanted to change how I looked. And I think, you know, that's kind of the masculine image, isn't it? Like, you need to be a Men's Health cover model, and you need to have really big legs or you're not going to be attractive to women, and you need to have really big muscles and abs and stuff. And I definitely think like that's been something that probably got me exercising in the early days. But now my mindset has shifted a lot more towards the mental health benefits of exercise, you know, how I feel, as opposed to trying desperately to stay really lean all year round. It's really hard. It's not that fun either. I love my food, you know, I love eating.
I'm really glad that you're talking about this. My husband, and he's spoken publicly about this, so he won't mind my saying it, has body dysmorphia. I mean, it's a pretty like full-blown case.
Right.
And he looks great, but no matter how many times I tell him that, it doesn't make any difference to how he feels about himself. And I think that is so much more widespread amongst men than we maybe think. And I wonder if you have any advice for someone who is currently suffering from that kind of condition where they're just constantly down on themselves and exercising maybe to an extreme.
When I think back to my early days of seeing like the perfect physique, like it would be like Van Damme in a movie, or you know, like Dolph Lundgren in Rocky, or you'd see like maybe a Men's Health cover. But now you wake up and the first thing you see is like 19, 20-year-old kids with the most beautiful physiques, like muscly ripped, and you're like, that is so unattainable, and you think that's normal, right? Same with girls. You wake up and see the 1% of incredible fitness models around the world, and so it's a warped perspective of like what the female and male body should really look like. And I'm 38, and I've been trying to build muscle really for like 20 years, 25 years, and it's really hard. I'm probably no bigger really than I was when I was 18, you know, but I feel good. I feel strong. I feel like I'm healthy. But building muscle takes, if you're going to go down that route, obviously there's like people doing steroids, but the natural route takes years and years to build muscle, and loads of food, loads of sleep, loads of heavy weights, and loads of food. And so it comes to a point where even if you gained muscle, let's just say I spent 3 years trying to build muscle, and I was eating 3,500, 4,000 calories a day, and I went back to my usual diet and sort of did HIIT training, all that muscle just falls off your body. It doesn't stay there, you know. So it's the same with you know, fat loss. If you get lean, you know, and you suddenly increase your calories and you're not exercising, you're going to regain the body fat. So I think what's important is to not chase an impossible goal. Like even myself, like I'd love to say, I look like I did 8 years ago when I was on the front cover of Men's Health, but I don't think I'll ever get back to that. And so I'm okay with that. You've got to kind of accept that your skin changes. You know, we get wrinkles, we get softer, we don't have as much muscle. You know, it's part of life, isn't it? And it's coming to terms with that and accepting that you can still have a really strong physique, you can still be healthy and happy, but not have your abs pop in and, you know, your triceps and your muscles looking all plump all the time, because it's just hard. The body is constantly, I mean, if you think every day we're not degrading is the wrong word, but we're like, you know, we're breaking down as opposed to kind of rebuilding. And so it does get harder with age.
Yeah.
And find some peace with that, I think.
Well, with those wrinkles come wisdom, although I have to say I'm staring at your face. There's not a single wrinkle on it.
I'm thinking the same about you as well. And I'm
Thanks,
38. You know, you look amazing. But yeah, I think, well, you've obviously lived a healthy life. Would you say you've lived a healthy life?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're not a big drinker and not a big smoker and stuff like that?
I don't smoke. I have the odd drink, but I love vegetables.
There you go.
And I love water and vegetables. And I've come to love exercise as well. Like in my 30s, I discovered it. And partly because of Joe Wicks.
Oh, that's working. Yes, I think, like I said, it's just like small little changes, and sometimes you fall in love with food or exercise quite later in life, and that's fine. But I think the physical thing, we're so hell-bent on trying to like look younger and like have the body that we had when we were 19, or you know, if you're when you have a baby, you're like, I want to get rid of the mum time, I need my abs to be how they were, why isn't my skin the same? You can lose weight and build muscle, but the skin may never be the same, and like that's okay, right? You've had two or three kids and you've built babies into the world. Like it's kind of trying to appreciate that. I know it's hard because we're always going to be self-conscious of our body image. Even if I say this now, like I still want to feel, I still don't want to have a big belly. I wouldn't feel confident pulling my top off on the beach with the kids having a big belly. Like, so I'm still like conscious that it will always be a factor, but it's not the driving force that gets me exercise in the morning.
When you are on the beach with the kids, are you always conscious when you take your top off that people will know who you are and that you have to?
I recognise those abs. No, I don't think that. I think they recognise my face and my annoying voice before they see my body. But I don't know. Yeah, I suppose there's like a pressure to kind of be in shape. But
Yeah.
I'm also like okay with the fact that I am nearly 40 and I'm not going to be like ripped and lean forever. But I still think I can be inspiring because I can still be, you know, can you say middle-aged at 40? I don't know.
Yeah, dispiritingly it is.
A middle-aged guy who's still motivating and inspiring. You know, it might not be 18-year-old kids or young people doing it, but I can still get people moving, and that's kind of my goal. Really. I still have literally 3 or 4-year-old toddlers doing my Hey Dougie workout, so I'm still getting the kids moving, and that's kind of where a lot of my energy goes. But I know there'll be a point one day where I'm not as, you know, relevant to that audience, but I'll still be getting adults moving, hopefully, and still. Look at Mr. Motivate. He's 70 years old. He's still going.
Is he?
Yeah, he still does online fitness and
What a legend.
corporate gigs and
look
stuff.
Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's 76.
But no, I love Arnie. I think he's inspiring still.
I think so too. And actually, it brings us onto your third and final learning, which is about consistency, which is something that Arnold Schwarzenegger definitely epitomizes. So, as you put it, learning to stay focused and being consistent in life. And you say that all of your success has come down to just showing up and keeping going and having focus.
Yeah, I really do. I really think it's such an important thing that we don't often talk about because it's almost like, well, with social media, you can just open an Instagram account and you're gonna have an amazing brand and everyone's gonna buy it, or you're gonna have an Instagram fitness channel and everyone's gonna follow your videos. But it just doesn't happen like that. It takes time. Like my YouTube took 7 years to build up, and then the P Joe moment happened, or my recipe books. I was sharing thousands of recipes before I got offered the book deal. No, maybe hundreds, maybe 500 or 600 recipes before I got the book deal. But by the time the books have come out, I have shared thousands of recipes. So it's about consistency. It's about showing up. And if I think back to the boot camp days, and that's another thing that always makes me cry when I think about how tough it was, because I'd leave my flat in Surbiton, and I'd have a trailer. I'd be lugging all the kettlebells and all the stuff, and I'd cycle to Richmond thinking like, there's going to be 20 people there, and there's no one there. And I thought, right, what are my options? I either quit and go back to being a labourer, or I go and work in a gym, which is fine, but I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to have my own business and stuff. So I just kept going to the station, flying and turning up. And I think we often forget that. You just see the success. You don't see those years of building up to that moment where you've actually had a little breakthrough, or you've got a new opportunity, or a new, something's come to you.
Did you almost give it all up?
Do you know, I can honestly say I never ever thought about giving up. And I remember I used to come home, so I'd ride from Surbiton to Richmond, Old Deer Park. No one would turn up. I'd do the flying. I'd ride back to Surbiton. And as I was coming in the door, it'd still be dark. And my brother would be like, anyone turn up? And he was always, what I love about Nicky, right? He's always been so supportive, but he never once said why don't you pack it in? Why don't you sack it off and give it up? It ain't working, is it, Joe? Nobody said that. And now Nicky's the CEO of the company, and it's an amazing business, that is helping millions of people. And I'm so glad he didn't say Joe, come on, mate, you've been at this for 2 years, it ain't growing. And I think, I just thought I've got no option. I don't want to work for somebody else. And for me, it was always about time. I always used to think, because I was quite nomadic, I always used to just take my student loan and piss off to Thailand or India. I thought, I want to be nomadic. I want to be able to say, I can work for a month or 6 months and I can go away for a month, and I can sort of own my own time. And I always thought about, if I was employed, I'd have 20 days a year, and that was a thing I used to think about. So I think that gave me the ambition to build my own business and be independent. And even now, I could work 12 months a year and do double the things I do and have double the opportunities and probably more money in the bank, but I don't, because I value time with my family. So, I go to America, I have time away, and the business suffers when I go away, but I still don't care, because I would never give up these years of my kids just to say, oh, the business is bigger, we've got another 100,000 subscribers. I don't know, it just doesn't motivate me enough to sacrifice that time. So yeah, consistency is so important, and that can be applied to school, to work, to everything in life. And people, I think, get so knocked back by failure and rejection that they just give up. But we can all do a lot more than we think, right? If we actually didn't hear the voice of failure in our head, and we heard the voice of, I say the cheerleader. I've got a cheerleader. So my voice kept saying, Joe, there's no one there today. Come back tomorrow, there might be one person, or come back the next day. And so it was always positively reinforcing that belief, as opposed to Joe, what are you doing? Like, you owe your dad $2,000, you owe your mum $2,000, and that was like $4,000. I was like, I'm in debt for life. I'm never going to pay it off. But, you know, I just kept doing it and kept turning up, and it did become a nice little business, paid them off, and then I bought mum a house, so she's chuffed, and life changed because of that mentality, I think.
Have you always had that cheerleader, or was it something that you developed?
I think we all have an internal voice. I don't know if you're born with it or if it's because of your surroundings, but I've never had a voice saying, you're not going to do this, it's going to fail. I don't know where it comes from. It's not like my mum and dad were like cheering me on, or I've had anyone pushing me. But I don't know, I thought, well, the options are, if I listen to a negative voice, I will quit and I will fail. And, you know, I wasn't trying to become a big businessman. I just wanted to have a little boot camp in Richmond. Like, genuinely, 20 people. I'd been like, 20 people paying me £10 an hour. That's £200 an hour. That'd be amazing. Imagine that. And then suddenly, like, your goalposts shift a bit, and you think, what about if I had an online plan and 100 people sign up a week? Wow. And then, you know, 1,000 people a day might join the app. And so my world's completely changed. But because I had that simple mindset of just keep doing it, like, you love it. What's the point of quitting? Like, keep going with it. Have you got a positive voice too?
But I feel very lucky with that, because I just feel I'm innately more optimistic than not. And I feel very lucky to have that, because I know that there are lots of people who don't. And like you, I'm not sure where it comes from, but I do know that resilience can be learned, and you can get better at it, and you can flex it like a physical muscle.
Yeah.
And so every time I've got through a failure, I've also thought, oh, well, that's made me feel really strong, because I've survived it. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Just sort of getting through.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think you can teach resilience, you can build that inner strength and that kind of mentality. And you've got to challenge the voice. Like, if the voice is saying to you, like, you are ugly, you're not beautiful, where's that coming from? Who told you you're ugly? Like, your legs are too skinny, you're not fit enough, you're not beautiful enough, like, you're not smart enough. Like, where did the voice come from? Is someone really said that to you, or is that you telling yourself that? And so I think you've got to challenge it, you've got to listen to it, and, you know, try and sit with it a bit and go, right, where did that come from? Is that because one day, like, my ex-boyfriend said something to me when I was a teenager, and I've lost my confidence and stuff, and then he's like, well, actually, my husband loves me as I am. Like, I am good, I am enough, you know. And you can really think about that, and it's hard if you've had real childhood trauma and you've had some real, like, difficult situations, but I still think there's an ability to, like, change that voice a little bit, even if it's one day at a time. And so now around my kids, I'm always trying to, you know, tell them they're beautiful and build that confidence. And I'll say it all day long, I love it. And I think Rosie's the same. Like, we try to build their self-esteem a little bit.
I just want to thank you so much for being so honest and lovely to talk to, Joe. Thank you so much for being the nation's cheerleader. I know you've got your inner cheerleader, but you're doing it for the rest of us. And thank you for coming on How to Fail.
Well, thank you so much for my therapy session. I don't know how much I owe you,
You're
but
welcome.
I feel like I'm going to go out of it a little bit lighter, and I will share this podcast with my audience and my mum and dad, because I love them knowing how much I love them. And sometimes I don't have to tell them to their face, they can listen to it on the podcast. And do you know what I mean? They'll listen to this, and I'm sure they'll be really happy with what we talked about.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Please do follow How to Fail to get new episodes as they land on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tell all your friends. This is an Elizabeth Day and Sony Music Entertainment original podcast. Thank you so much for listening.